Russians are taken to the war in Ukraine directly from their jobs. People are not allowed to go home to pack their things.
At the metallurg plant, they simply closed the entrances and exits, issued summonses according to the quota, gave people 2 hours to get ready, and took them away. The situation is similar at the Kuybyshev refinery. People were also mobilized from the workplaces. From a message on the channel Protocol Samara on Telegram.
You come for a passport, you get a summons. Now Russians are also mobilized in state institutions. Moscow municipal administrations received an unofficial order to issue summonses to all men from 20 to 34 years old, regardless of whether they have a deferment or not.
I'm sorry, but that's not possible. He won't take it. He won't take summons.
Write what you want, but I will not take it.
An additional motivation to replenish the ranks of recruits should be coal and sheep. In Tuva, earned ones are given out for each mobilized family member. The more conscripts, the more sheep. Such support was called a priority by the local authorities.
Municipal district administrations have begun to allocate priority assistance to the families of the reservists in the forms of live sheep and shipment of coal. The joint efforts of the authorities and active residents should make the families and relatives of the servicemen feel that they will not be left alone with everyday problems. From the publication of the official portal of the Republic of Tula.
It is also impossible to avoid being sent to the front because of pacifism, although the current legislative norms should allow this. According to them, a conscript with beliefs or religion that does not allow him to take part in hostilities can be sent to civilian service instead of the army, but in practice it doesn't work.
Можно посоветовать призывникам или...
One piece of advice to the conscripts or men today is as follows. First of all, do not live in the place of registration. Do not sign any papers at all, because if you sign a summons, there may be an administrative penalty. But physically, they do not have the right to draft you.
Those who do not want to go to the front are trying to protest. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the dissatisfied have already set fire to at least 50 administrative buildings, and more than half of them since the beginning of the mobilization. In Novosibirsk, at the height of the conscription, the military commissariat was thrown with Molotov cocktails, but most of the potential conscripts decided not to fight but to run. Russians storm checkpoints and line up in huge queues at airports. The Federation has not yet closed its borders, but neighboring countries can do this for their part. So Finland has already closed the land border for Russian tourists.
The aim of the resolution is to halt Russian tourism into Finland and transit through Finland to other Schengen countries. In the resolution, the government notes that the entry of Russian citizens in tourist purposes into Finland endangers Finland's international relations.
The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, called on the Russians to sabotage the mobilization. He recorded a video in Russian language which is primarily addressed to the peoples of the Caucasus, those who are more active than others in protesting against criminal mobilization.
Fight not to die. Defend your freedom now in the streets and squares, so that later you don't have to fight in the mountains and forests simply for your right to live, when the Russian authorities begin the next waves of mobilization.
The number of Russians fleeing the draft abroad already exceeds the number of all the forces deployed by Russia to invade Ukraine in February 2022. This is British intelligence data. Mostly wealthy and well-educated people leave. There is a so-called brain drain. The number of the labor force is reduced. Putin's mobilization not only fails to help the Kremlin win the war of aggression, but also deprives Russia of those who could change the country's future. Reported by Sergei Kulas, Valeria Nekipelova, UATV News.